Right now, South Africa is facing a crime and policing crisis. Every day, 364 violent robberies are committed across the country. 67 people are murdered every day, and 153 people are raped every day. The South African Police Service, run by the ANC national government, is losing the fight against crime. The massively under-resourced SAPS is becoming more corrupt and dysfunctional by the day, and completely ineffective at keeping South Africans safe. Since the appointment of National Police Minister Bheki Cele, the policing budget has been slashed by 3.8 billion rand in the space of only 1 year. South Africa now has 1,300 fewer detectives to investigate crime and even fewer boots on the ground. Almost a third of all policing vehicles are broken down. Yet, the VIP protection budget for government officials has increased by 26 million rand. While a massive backlog of DNA forensic samples is denying millions of victims justice. Under the watch of National Police Minister Bheki Cele, the July riots and looting in KwaZulu-Natal and Johannesburg caused 50 billion rands worth of damages, and hundreds of people lost their lives. South Africans were abandoned by the South African Police Service, left to defend themselves and their families on their own. Now, Bheki Cele wants to take away your right to own a firearm for the purpose of self-defense. Enough is enough. Bheki Cele is completely out of touch with the lived reality of ordinary South Africans.
You come here, shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Our nation is in crisis. Urgent and immediate action is needed. Join the fight. Sign the petition calling on President Ramaphosa to keep South Africans safe, starting with the firing of National Police Minister Bheki Cele.
In South Africa every day, 67 people are murdered, 153 people are raped, and 364 violent robberies are committed. In the previous quarter, murder increased by 11.5% and child murders increased by a shocking 46.4%. South Africans from all walks of life are traumatized by crime. They feel unsafe in their homes, on their farms, and in their communities. It's clear that Police Minister Bheki Cele is failing and is losing the fight against crime, and we will not shut up. President Ramaphosa, we need bold and decisive action. Genoeg is genoeg. While you and your cabinet are protected by VIP blue light brigades, everyone else lives in fear of being attacked, raped and murdered. Today, the leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, will lead the Cele Must Go march in the streets of Tshwane, alongside our representatives in Parliament, provincial legislatures and local governments. We'll be crossing live to Tshwane, where the DA, together with civil organisations, including Ian Cameron's Action Society, are marching to Bheki Cele's office, calling for this failing police minister to go. You can also join the conversation by using the hashtag Cele Must Go. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm joined in studio today by Solly Malatsi, the DA's national spokesperson, and Nazli Sharif, the DA's Shadow Deputy Minister of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities. The main reason why we're here today, Cele must go. We have seen, Solly, that this man is not fit to be in a position to have to care for the safety of South Africans.
Absolutely. I think throughout Minister Cele's tenure, he has displayed himself not only to be incompetent, but incapable of understanding South Africans' frustrations with the impact of crime in their lives. And if you look also at his priorities, you know, they seem skewed, very skewed. Currently, we've got 20,000 less police officers than we did in 2010. If you look at South African Police Services spending on VIP protection vis-a-vis the resources that are needed in police stations to make our communities safer, that tells you that this is a minister who doesn't have the right priorities, who doesn't have the right leadership. And you look at the levels of crime. I mean, you look at, people who are raped daily, 153 people being raped daily, 67 murders a day. Those are not just numbers. They speak to relatives. They speak to our peers. They speak to our neighbors. These are people that we know. So if you have not been a victim of crime, you know someone who has been a victim of crime. And the cycle goes on and on. And the best way for President Ramaphosa to demonstrate to South Africans that he cares about the safety of our country, he cares about the safety of our residents, is to dismiss Bheki Cele from office, because he has displayed throughout he is insensitive. He doesn't read the mood in terms of what is needed in providing the right leadership to showcase to the country that he understands what South Africans are going through daily, and he has the solutions. He has proven over and over again. He vilifies people who bring solutions to the table to fight crime, because that exposes his incompetence, Richard.
Exactly. And Asli, the grandstanding. I mean, what message is his grandstanding sending to people who have lost loved ones or suffered the trauma of the abuse and the crime that we face every day?
Richard, simply, Minister Bheki Cele does not care. And you hear this when he speaks in Parliament, when he speaks to communities, when he tells activists to shut up. He simply does not care about the safety of South Africans. I find it infuriating that Minister Cele has the nerve to say a woman is lucky to be raped by one person and not many. You can't use lucky and rape in the same sentence. It just doesn't make sense. And the worst part, Richard, is that he tries to justify it by pointing fingers to everybody else. Leadership is about being self-aware and taking accountability and apologizing when you've offended so many people. And Minister Cele, because he doesn't care, he doesn't feel like it's necessary to apologize to the nation. 153 people, like Swali said, it's not numbers. These are real life people. If it's not you, it's somebody you've known that has been a victim of rape, that has been a victim of gender-based violence and femicide. And they go to the police station and the police treat them as if it's just another case, another day. And these are the issues that we're seeing on the ground. Yes, Minister Cele is in Parliament, but he leads over so many police officers that take their lead from the minister. And if you go and report a rape case, or if you go and report a GBVF case, you'll be lucky if you get a rape kit. That's what he should have said, instead of saying it's lucky to be raped. You'll be lucky if you get assistance. Richard, oftentimes I get called to police stations to do oversight. And only after I present my parliamentary tag, something happens. Why do we have to live in a country where a parliamentarian has to come in order for something to happen? It's just infuriating, and it can't be right. And today's march signifies that South Africans are tired. As the DA, we're South African first, and we are saying enough is enough. Minister Cele must go. He must be fired. And President Ramaphosa must stop defending him, and he must fire him. Enough is enough. Either you put South African first, or you put your ministers first. And he has to make a choice, and I think he has.
And Richard,
it's clear for everybody.
I think Nestle makes a very important choice here. The choice that the president has is the safety of South Africans or the protection of Bheki Cele. He can't have it both ways, because at this stage he has an individual who has shown that he's incapable of providing the right leadership. But over and beyond that, the Minister of Police set an example to the rest of the police officers by his conduct and by his actions, in terms of how serious is he in making sure that he fights for the resources that we know that South African police services do not have. I mean, half of the vehicles of the South African police services are not in good condition to be used. Right? If you look at the number, the general standards that it should be one police officer for at least 220 community members. Currently, it's one police officer per 430 community members. So they are overburdened. So one of the obvious things, the most simple, basic things that this minister should have done to showcase that he cares. He could surrender VIP protection for him and his other colleagues and say, we are dedicating this amount that we spend 8 million on VIP protection every year towards boosting the resources that our officers need. Because we know that with that 8 million, for instance, you can hire, an additional 220 law enforcement officers and have more vehicles. And this is why it's so important, because when you have the politician at the apex of that responsibility not doing their job, in a normal environment, in any corporate, Bheki Cele would have been fired ago. So the onus is on the president now, and that's why it's so important for South Africans to join in on this petition, so that they sign the petition and add in the numbers, so that we apply the pressure to get Bheki Cele to go.
And we're seeing the pictures coming in from Tshwane. A lot of people out on the march. We can see from the signs that they're holding that they have had enough. We can see people joining in. And the message is very, very clear, is that community members are tired of being held hostage to excuses. Because we've seen, as you mentioned, a third of police vehicles totally out of action.
Yeah.
So how do you get a response time? The communities have said up to this point and no more. And it's about time. The president defending him. How did you feel when the president said things are getting better?
No,
he defended him and said things are getting better.
No, I'm sorry. He needs to be truthful. Especially when he comes to Parliament, he needs to be truthful and he needs to speak the truth. And sometimes the truth is not always going to be what we want to hear, but at least give us, the space to make those decisions for ourselves and just be truthful. Speaking about the petition, 30,000 South Africans have already signed the petition at Cele Must Go. So go on, keep signing that petition. The more people that sign the petition, says to President Ramaphosa, the more people want this minister to be fired. So the more people that sign the petition gives us a bigger mandate to say it's not just the DA. 30,000 South African individuals have signed this petition and has lost faith and has lost trust in Minister Bheki Cele. Richard, I think we must also always be cognizant to say that we're not saying that SAPS is woefully incompetent. There are amazing police officers doing their absolute best, doing as much as they can with a little bit of resources. And we need to, acknowledge that we're not speaking to those SAPS members, but we're speaking to the minister and saying we need a capable leader to lead the thousands of police officers on the ground. That's what needs to happen. We were talking about cars. Richard, imagine something happens to you at your home and you call SAPS and nobody comes. What do we do as South Africans when the last line of defense is not there? How then do we protect ourselves?
And Nestle makes a very important point, because we rely on the states, but those are only for reported crimes. Yeah. There are a lot of community members who have given up on reporting because it takes forever for a police vehicle to come on the scene of crime where it has happened. And sometimes, even with detectives, we conduct oversight visits as part of our job. And one of the things that I've discovered in, at least the 8 oversight visits that I've done is you have an instance where one detective has over 100 dockets by them. And that means that they are overburdened, Richard. Yeah. And these are the things that the minister, who cares about, the welfare of police officers, but also their efforts to fight crime, should be highlighting and fighting for the resources. But he's vilifying people who are standing up and civil society organizations that are fighting crime. He's vilifying those instead of fighting for more resources to go into that. But also, secondly, is the issue of accountability. We are taking this then that Bheki Cele must go because we are holding him accountable for his action. His responsibility is to ensure that South Africa is safe. His responsibility is to ensure that we have a functional police service that is well-resourced, that is capable of fighting and preventing crime from happening. And all of that is not happening. South Africa has lost the war on crime because South African police services do not have those resources. And that's why it's a very important thing when the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape Provincial government are taking initiatives of our own to make sure that we protect communities where we govern with initiatives such as the Law Enforcement Advancements Program, LEAP, which is making sure that we've got more boots on the ground. We've got these law enforcement officers allocated to crime hotspots so that they can increase visible policing to prevent crime from taking place.
Yeah, and I mean, we all understand that wherever we work, you have certain responsibilities, and if you don't meet those responsibilities, you should be held accountable. And Bheki Cele doesn't fall into that category. I mean, if you imagine a lady walking with her 2 kids at night to a shop, I mean, the risk she's taking there, and yet we see Bheki Cele climbing out of a R1 million armoured car surrounded by armed men. You know, we need to see those people on the streets assisting the people of this country. And 100% agree with you there, Solly, where the Western Cape has decided that we can't wait for Cele
Absolutely.
to make plans. We have to make our own. And you gave an example of the LEAP officers. The LEAP officers, you were telling me earlier, Nazli, doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. So the LEAP Officers is an initiative by the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape Provincial Government to put more boots on the ground, essentially. So currently there's around 1,100 LEAP officers deployed in the crime hotspot areas. So places where crime is at its highest, and put it there as a model to see how it would work. And the results are astounding. You have Msimanga dropping in murder rates, so it's no longer the murder capital of South Africa. You have places like Crezane that has a 40% drop in crime, and you're seeing LEAP officers arresting triple the amount of people that it would have before, confiscating illegal firearms, busting drug dens, and actually doing the work that SAPS should be doing. So I just want to say to Cape Town and the Western Cape Provincial Government, good work. Congratulations, and keep it going. We want to see more LEAP officers on the ground and moving more towards the CBD and other places in Cape Town, so that the province can be kept safe. And as the DA starts taking over more governments, we can start implementing these solutions in other governments as well, because it works.
Yeah, and that's what we want to see. We want to expand this as far as possible. And if we're not getting support from the minister, I mean, he criticizes some of the moves we take. But I'm told by our producers that our roving man on the ground, Celia Brink, is with the Shadow Minister of Policing. So we cross now live to Tshwane.
Thanks very much, Richard. And as you can see, the streets of Pretoria are flooded by a sea of blue. And what you can feel is the frustration of people about the lawlessness in this country, the lack of effective, caring, competent policing. And as you mentioned, I'm joined now by the DA Shadow Minister of Police, Andrew Whitfield. Andrew, welcome to Pretoria.
Thanks very much, Silas. It's great to be here in this blue sea of DA supporters.
And tell us, why are we at the office of the Minister of Police?
Well, we've come right to the doorstep of the Minister today because time and time again the Minister has proven that he's not up to the job. This is just stage one. We're going to end up at the Union buildings until the President hears our call to remove this useless Minister. He has honestly, over and over again proven that he can't do the job, and we've come here today to ask him to step down.
Talking about the President, Andrew, why do you think he keeps on defending Cele?
Well, it's strange because he's the only person that I know that supports the Minister. Every single South African that I speak to cannot stand the Minister. Every single police officer asks us, when is Minister Cele going to go? He's an embarrassment to the police service. So only the President can answer that question, but I can't imagine it's anything good, and I'm sure it's only about the politics and not about bringing safety out to our communities.
So, Andrew, the DA and civil society organizations like Action Society who are joining us here today, if we get our way and if Bheki Cele is fired as the Minister of Police, what mandate would the DA government give a new, caring, competent Minister of Police?
Well, the President would have to find a caring, competent, capable minister from amongst his cadres. But when the DA takes over government, we will appoint that person to get the basics right. We have a systemic failure of the South African Police Service to do the fundamental basics. We need to train our police officers with new modern techniques. We need to make sure that IPID is depoliticized and that it reports to Parliament. We need to make sure that discipline management in the police is restored and that fit-for-purpose police officers who can actually chase down the criminals are appointed and not corrupt cadres. And ultimately, we want to devolve policing powers to capable provincial and local governments so that we can improve local oversight and accountability to improve policing outcomes. And really, it is as simple as that. Instead, the Minister parades across crime scenes from one part of the country to the next, instead of sitting in his office doing the basics that are required to turn the system around.
Thanks very much, Andrew, and I'm looking forward to talking to Geordin Hill-Lewis and Premier Alan Winde, who are also here to listen to some of the practical things DA governments are doing to fill the gap in policing. Thanks very much. Back to you in the studio, Richard.
Thank you very much for that, Celia. Solia, and the important point there, speaking about devolution or decentralization, what in effect does that mean, Soli?
Well, in a very simple way, it means that you transfer the power of policing and fighting crime to local authorities that have the means to do so and are capable of doing so. So it basically means that instead of having a situation where, as it happens now, all the powers regarding what gets allocated to police stations, who gets allocated there financially, the number of police stations that get, certain number of vehicles being done from a central office in Pretoria, you take that power, you give it to local authorities who are closer to communities, and you then let them determine which police stations need a certain number of vehicles of, captains, sergeants, and the resources that they need to fight crime, because those have the local knowledge and the local insights into what is needed in their communities. So in a practical sense, it would mean that transferring that power into the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape Provincial government, because they've got a very clear indication of what the reality is on the ground. And we've already seen with some of the interventions and the breakthroughs that the LEAP program has had, when you use localized knowledge to come up with targeted interventions to improve and enhance community safety. Nestle was saying earlier that some of the interventions that the LEAP program has done, it's amazing. 12 of the areas where the LEAP officers have been allocated used to be in the top 30 murder police stations in the country. Following the introduction of LEAP in those areas, they are no longer in that top 30 in the country, and it shows that through the use of scientific information, targeted responses to crime, and being proactive, you can prevent a lot of crime that then gives the community a sense of safety and belonging, because we all want to feel safe, not only in our homes, but also out on our streets, so that when your children go and play in the streets, you are assured that they will return home safely.
And a lot of it is about being proactive. And when the community are more involved and have this policing closer to them, we can start talking about specialized units, surely, because some areas require specialized units, other areas don't. Yeah. And that's important.
Yeah, look, Richard, it's important to note that wherever you go in South Africa, no one community is the same. Every community has their own unique challenges, they have their own unique issues. And when you have a office in Pretoria just signing off budgeting and targets from a office without going and seeing what are the needs of that society, this is exactly what happens. And so the LEAP program looks specifically at specific communities and say, okay, what does this community need? How much can we budget? What does this community need? How much can we budget? And that also links into collaboration. Collaboration is so important with your CPFs, your local community watches, your local policing forums, your NGOs, those NGOs targeting gender-based violence and femicide, rape, murder, all of these, it's a collaborative effort. And once communities feel like they are safe and that they can trust law enforcement, you see work like this happening, because now there is collaboration between lots of stakeholders that come together for a specific reason, and the outcomes are amazing. As Sally said, 12 of those areas are no longer in the top 30 hotspot areas. And if this has been happening in the last couple of years, imagine 10 years from now what our communities will look like. And it won't look anything like it does today. And that's great, because currently South Africa is wild. It feels like we're living in the wild. To just go and buy bread at the local tuck shop or going to take a taxi to go to work, you're literally waking up in the morning and putting on sort of like an invisible bulletproof vest, because you never know what is going to happen in this country. And this is why Minister Cele must go. He has lost the trust of South Africans, and he's not doing anything to make us feel safer. He has to go.
You spoke about budgets. I mean, surely if as a national government, when you're looking to cut budgets and you look at the country and the state we are in lawlessness, the last place you cut the budget is the police budget. But yet we see it being hacked and billions taken out of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but also it starts with the custodian of policing. This is the Minister of Police, right, who knows very well, because we as civilians know this, that our police officers are under-resourced and they do not have all the support that they need. Because as Nestle correctly said, you know, we must separate the fact that there are very hard-working police officers who are risking their lives every day to keep all of us safe. But they are overburdened, they are under-trained, they are under-resourced. At the same time, we are overspending on the protection of a political elite of ministers. And even so, the Ministry of Police spends 600 million on catering and accommodation at a time when the police officers are under-resourced and under-training. And the cumulative effect of this is, even with the little numbers of police officers that are there, they are not adequately empowered to fight crime in the best possible way. And we should be advancing for more of that, so that they are better prepared, they are fully resourced, and they're capable of fighting crime. And you know what? When you look broadly into society, communities are taking the initiative to keep themselves safe, right? It's a collaborative, it's a whole of society approach, because communities are holding each other accountable. Increasing support for neighborhood watches, and it happens in the Western Cape and Cape Town, is necessary. Everyone is doing their bit to contribute towards enhancing public safety. The president, through the continued protection of Bheki Cele, is perpetuating crime in society, because crime levels continue to rise under Cele. The best way to do is all South Africans, even if you haven't as yet been a victim of crime, you have been affected by crime, because you know someone who is still traumatized by the effects of crime or does not feel safe to go out in their own communities. Let's rally each other together. Let's sign this petition. Let's increase the political pressure that the president needs to feel, so that he can do the right thing, and let Bheki Cele go.
Bheki Cele is an embarrassment. Yes, no.
Absolutely, absolutely is. I mean, Sally, I agree with you. People are scared to go out, but people are scared to be in their homes. Homes have become crime scenes. You have domestic violence that is rampant in our society, and it takes very long for police to come and you know, give assistance. Let's not even talk about the lack of rape kits that are at police stations. Let's not even, you know, speak about, like you said, the lack of training. So creating second-degree trauma for these survivors is just part of the experience of being a South African. You know, Andrew spoke about how President Ramaphosa is playing politics. This is what we said earlier. President Ramaphosa is picking politics over people. And that should be a clear sign to all South Africans that if your president is choosing politics over you, then something must happen. And all of them, in fact, need to be fired.
Yeah, party before country, policies before citizens. We're seeing a lot of that, Solly.
Yeah. Look, the obvious choice here, Richard, that the president has is a minister who continues to undermine the public's frustrations about their lack of safety and doing the right thing. The right thing is quite obvious here. Surely Bheki Cele is not the only person who can seemingly do this job, because he has proven over again that he can't do it. But if there's a message to the president that he needs to understand, is that daily South Africans are not feeling safe because of this man who is currently the Minister of Police. Daily you've got 67 people that are murdered under the watch of Bheki Cele. Daily you've got 153 people that are raped under the watch of Bheki Cele. And if the president thinks that is okay, then we must do the right thing as all South Africans to make sure that the president and his government do not return to office, because he's the one that makes sure that Bheki Cele continues today an extra day in office.
And I think a point you made earlier, Solly, about the reported cases, because I think we'll never know the extent of the unreported cases, because people, like with the employment situation where they've just given up looking for a job, people have given up reporting certain crimes because they know it's going nowhere.
I mean, you know, when we get into the DNA backlog, that is on a whole another level. But quickly, I just want to say, I remember Minister Cele coming to Parliament and saying, oh, I visit all the crime scenes, exactly what Andrew said. I mean, the nerve of this guy. Okay, great, you're visiting crime scenes to show people that you're there, but these crime scenes shouldn't have happened. So the fact that you're going to crime scenes is not a win. We can't congratulate a fish for swimming. That is your job. But what you need to do is make sure that these crimes don't happen. Make sure that there is proper justice given for women so that we are not scared of being raped. Richard, I can leave the studio right now and anything could happen to me. And I don't feel like I trust the police to give me justice because it's led by an incompetent, uncaring, insensitive, misogynistic man like Bheki Cele.
And the cumulative effect of that, Richard, is that we then are unable to get convictions for crimes that happen because of the poor detection work that happens. Not simply because we've got incompetent police officers, but they're under-resourced. They're overburdened by work. And as a result, everyone who's overworked and under-resourced, it leads to dodgy outcomes, right? So the most important thing that should be doing now is at the apex of responsibility for looking after the police is Minister Bheki Cele. His leadership ought to have been exemplary, because I think we have gone beyond the time for redemption for Minister Cele. The only redemption that is appropriate for him is in retirement, not continuing in this position. So the issue here is that, and I think society needs to understand that, we are calling for accountability.
Indeed. Accountability is what we need. Bheki Cele must go. We're now going to cross over to Tshwane, where the speakers are about to take the stage.
You're stuck with the baby of your rapist that you must raise for the rest of your life. That's why I'm asking, Bheki Cele, have you ever been raped? Siviwe is right. Our enemy is not the police, because when they arrest the perpetrator, we cannot afford to have DA backlog. It demoralizes our police. Because if that DNA had been analyzed, we could have put the perpetrator behind bars and locked him up. But now there's no evidence. After time they say to you, the specimen, they can't even use it anymore. So there's no evidence anymore to help us. So to our sisters and our brothers, our children, enough is enough. Bheki Cele, if you cannot deal with the backlog of DNA, you are denying us justice. You do not know what it's like to be raped, or to have to comfort somebody who's been raped, or to help a mother love a child that she bore out of rape, because you do not look at the DNA backlog and the pain that it causes us, the women who carry the children. Then you wonder why society has so many broken men. It was wrong to rape, but now you are encouraging it because perpetrators do not fear being caught, because the DNA will sit in backlog. How many rapes actually get into arrest? How many arrests make it into the courtroom? How many of them end up in convictions so those guys go into prison? Very few. So I'm saying, Bheki Cele, step down, Daddy. Step down, Daddy. Ubaliti. Mereka ubaliti kapa. Magahambe. Magahambe. Asamahe. Halala je halala. Bheki Cele 2024 yadla. Letlonta. Asamahe. Asamahe. Ye yadla. Halala.
Democrats, the president is only too happy. So today we are saying it is either the women of South Africa or Bheki Cele, but we can't coexist. It is either us or Bheki Cele. It is either South Africans or Bheki Cele. He must make it clear, because we are saying Bheki Cele must go, because he does not know how to do his job. He does not know how to protect us in our communities. And so the president has a choice to make today, Democrats. He either keeps Bheki Cele, his friend, in office, or he gets rid of him to protect us. We are saying the choice is either us or Bheki Cele. We hope he makes the right choice. And now the mayor of Cape Town, where we are doing enough so that we can make sure that our communities are safe. We have Mayor Geordin.
Saluting all of our dedicated, hard-working SAPS officers around the country. They are professionals. They are here today to protect us, and we thank them for doing their best. It is not their fault they've got a terrible minister. You know, every single morning, long before the sun comes up, hundreds of thousands of Capetonians and millions of people across our country wake up in the dark and walk to catch public transport to get to work. They're already stressed about the fact that they can't be sure of their jobs because this government has destroyed the economy, and with it, their hopes of work. But on the way to catch that public transport, they've got to go past gangsters and thieves, schoolies and Tutsis that want to steal and rob and worse. And who's there fighting for those people to protect them? Those are the people that we are thinking about in Cape Town when we are rolling out our interventions. You are welcome too. They're also welcome to help us fight Bheki Cele, aren't they welcome? They're also welcome. They're also welcome. Who is thinking of those people? Not anyone in the police ministry. No one's thinking of them. Who is doing something to protect those people? DA governments are doing something. We are doing what we can with what we have, with very limited resources. We are putting officers on those streets so that when you and so many millions of other South Africans are walking to the bus or the train in the morning, you don't have to feel afraid. You know that you can go to work in safety. And we've made a simple proposal to Bheki Cele. Let us help SAPS in the fight against crime. Give us more policing powers so that we can do even more to protect South Africans. And let's look at the results. Where we are already doing that, crime is coming down.
people are getting safer. Murder is coming down. Rape is coming down. Robbery is coming down. In fact, something amazing happened in our latest crime statistics. There are only 10 places where crime went down, 10 police stations. One was in Crezane. Who wants to guess, shout out where the other 9 were? Where were the other 9? Cape Town. 9 out of 10 places where crime is coming down is where we are putting more officers on the street to make up for Bheki Cele's failure. So we made a simple proposal. Let us help you bring crime down by giving us more policing power. And you know what his answer was? No. Now, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I really want to try and work with Minister Cele. So I think to myself, why would you say no? Why would you say no to a proposal that is already working? Why would you say no to that? The only conclusion I can come to is that you don't care about people's safety. You care about controlling SAPs for yourself. And if you don't care about people's safety, then we don't want to work with you, Minister Cele. Because we care about people's safety. That's what we're in this for. It's not about fighting you. It's not about beating you. It's about keeping people safe on the streets. So if you want crime to go down, then I'm afraid I've come to the necessary conclusion that Bheki Cele has to go down. That's the only way that crime is going to go down. And if you want safety to go up, if you want to feel safer in your communities, in every part of our country, then there is only one party making you safer. There's only one government making you safer, and it's the government. It is the party of the t-shirt you are wearing, of the banners you are waving, of the songs you are singing today. It's the party of the Democratic Alliance. Thank you very much.
Viva Democrats, we've got now the Mayoral Committee member of Community Safety in the city of Cape Town, J.P. Smith, who's going to be telling us a lot more about the work that they're doing.
Viva J.P. Smith, viva! Aye, J.P. Smith, aye.
Good morning, everyone. So over the last decade, I've been in the council for a long time, and over the last decade I've watched national government starve our national police service of resources, of staff, of vehicles, of equipment, of technology and of leadership, so that our police are now in a massive crisis. And that pains me, it really pains me. Just like I know it pains the good people in SAPS who want to do their jobs despite these difficult conditions. The constitution of our country says it is the job of national government to do crime prevention. But because of the lack of capacity now in SAPS, the city of Cape Town has been challenged to do more and more outside of our job of traffic and bylaw enforcement. And we haven't been lazy, we've stepped up. We've done more and more of those functions. Rail enforcement, marine enforcement, metal theft enforcement, liquor enforcement, and gang and firearm and drug enforcement, because it needs to be done. We've worked with our communities because we've seen them bleed. So we've worked with our neighborhood watchers, we've worked with the community improvement districts so people can protect themselves. We've started to manage informants, we've gathered information, and we've started to do tracking the cases through courts when there are murders in our communities and gang cases to see what happens to those cases.
We have a thing that the mayor has referred to, the law enforcement advancement program with the province. That project has got an amazing result. In the police precincts, the 13 precincts in Cape Town, Harare, Khayelitsha, Mkoleni, Philippi East, Delft. In the police precincts where that project is running, we have seen our crime stats come down quarter on quarter. So the results are there. And we did this project with one purpose, to make the lives of our community safer. We've done everything in our power to make sure that our communities have a better opportunity. You would think that doing all of this, that would be welcomed by the National Minister of Policing. You would think he would say, thank you, I appreciate the partnership. And you would think that while Minister Cele and President Ramaphosa's cabinet is stripping thousands of police officers off the SAP's budget, he would say thank you for the extra boots on the ground. You would think, not so. That is not what he said. Instead of welcoming the help, Minister Cele has made every effort in Cape Town to frustrate us. He's criticized the LEAP officers. He's questioned their authority. He's attempted to frustrate our information gathering, our investigative efforts. He has spent time peddling lies in public meetings and creating disunity in our communities, all for political points. So shame on you, Minister. We offered you our hand and you dismissed it. Minister Cele, when we asked you to open the gate and work with us so we can do more of your work for you, you snubbed us and you scoffed us. When the mayor asked you to share our deep SAP's powers, to use your constitutional power, to give our staff more power to help our communities, you dismissed it. So Minister Cele, when you are dismissing this, you're not dismissing the city of Cape Town. You're dismissing the people of the city. You're dismissing our residents and you're dismissing their futures. And for that alone, I say, you are not fit to hold that job anymore, Minister. You must go. Step aside and allow somebody with a genuine passion. Yes, say it. Step aside, Minister, and allow someone with a genuine passion for policing to step up and do your job for you and get things working again. For who? For those who live in fear of gangsters who hold some of our communities hostages. For businesses from Khayelitsha to Long Street who fear extortionist syndicates. For women who need to travel in the train alone in the dark in the morning. For the child who wants to learn in the school and doesn't want gangsters to disrupt their classes and steal from their school. For the family who don't know if their father who was kidnapped is still alive. For the bus commuter who wants to get to work without taxi syndicates attacking the buses. For these people, Minister Cele, step aside. For these people and many more people, President Ramaphosa, fire Minister Cele, make him go. Because really, yes, we deserve better. Thank you.
Viva JP Smith, viva! Halala, the city of Cape Town, halala! Forward, leap forward!
Forward! And now we're going to be calling upon the spokesperson in the Gauteng province for community safety in the legislature, Crezane Bosch.
Aye, aye, Crezane, aye, aye!
Good morning, Democrats. Today we're standing here and I want to tell you about what we've been doing in Gauteng. In Gauteng there's 143 police stations and only 5 of them are up to standard. Only 5 of those police stations are places where we can go and we can feel safe and we can actually open up a case and know that something will happen about it. The rest of the police stations are all messed up. Public Works have failed us. Bheki Cele has failed us and he doesn't have the guts to take on Patricia de Lille to fix the police stations. And I want to ask him, Minister Bheki Cele, would you work in a police station that is flooded with sewage dripping from the roofs, in the place where there is no electricity for more than a year, where they have to walk around in the dark passages of police stations, where there isn't any cells, where people, detainees, need to be stuck in a truck for so many hours during the day because there is no place to hold them? No one would work in circumstances like that, and that is why crime is rising and Bheki Cele and the police is failing to curb crime in this province. This province is contributing to 30% of the crime nationally. This needs to end. Bheki Cele can't do oversight over police stations sitting in his office over here. He needs to get down onto the ground, go visit police stations exactly the way we are doing it. But instead what he's waiting for is for the DA in our Police Watch campaign in Gauteng to tell him where the problems are. And even then he pulls up his shoulders and he says there's nothing he can do. That needs to end now, and Democrats, that is the reason why Bheki Cele must go.
Down, Bheki Cele, down! Away with Bheki Cele, away! Party with Bheki Cele, party! Down, Bheki Cele, down! Hey, you must go.
And now we're going to be calling upon the Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Winde, to tell us what the province in the Western Cape that is under a DA government is doing to keep communities safe.
Viva DA, viva! I bring you greetings from the people of the Western Cape. Hello everybody, Moyweni, Goeiedag. Today is a special day. Today is a day where we draw a line in the sand here in Gauteng. Because enough is enough. 20,000 people were murdered in South Africa last year. 20,000 people. Do you know how many people that is? It's unacceptable. I see a banner there that says 67 murders a day. It's 71. It's going up. I saw a banner over here about the rapes. There's 115 rapes in our country every single day. That is unacceptable. And the problem in South Africa is that Bheki Cele doesn't have a plan. There is no plan to bring that down. You heard the mayor and JP. In our province, we have a plan. We take that plan and we implement that plan. And what happens when you implement a plan? The murder rate starts to come down. You can have that here in Gauteng. We can have that here in South Africa. We only have to do a few things. Number one, Bheki Cele must go.
Yes.
Number two, you need a DA government here in Gauteng. I can see the smiles. You need a DA government here in Gauteng. So that we can put a plan in place, just like we've done in the Western Cape. Because when you put a plan in place, you put more policing, you police using data and science and good management. You put good management in place, you measure it. If it doesn't come down, you change the plan until it comes down. And then you must also put violence prevention measures in place. Our young boys, when they start to go towards the gangs, we must pull them away from going to the gangs, and we must make sure that they become the entrepreneurs of the future, not the gangsters of the future. We need to get our kids into jobs of the future, because then we can build a safer society. Nothing stops a bullet like a job. Nothing puts food on your table like a job. Nothing gives you dignity like a job. And safety and jobs go together like this. So, out with Bheki Cele, let's put a plan on the table and let's make this country safer. Yes. Viva DA, viva! Viva! Thank you.
Aye, Alan Winde, aye. Viva, Alan Winde, viva! Viva to the lip, viva! Go on with lip forward! TTTA, aye la la, aye la la, Geordin, TTA, aye la la, Geordin, oh yeah. Viva TA, viva! Viva! We're saying down, Bheki Cele, down! Away, Bheki Cele, away! Bheki Cele must fall! Bheki Cele must be fired! Bheki Cele must resign! Bheki Cele must go home! We are tired of Bheki Cele, we're tired! We are tired of this cowboy, we are tired! Bheki Cele, down! Bheki Cele must fall! Ayeye TA, ayeye!
It's clear, Democrats, that the only solution to our crime crisis is for Bheki Cele to go. Bheki Cele must go. Andrew, we want you to tell Bheki Cele in Parliament that we've said here there's 33,000 people who've signed our petition, who've said one thing, and that he must go. And that he must go and rest. And now, to talk to us about what is happening in Parliament, Andrew Whitfield.
Andrew Whitfield, Allah, the incoming Minister of Police, Allah, the incoming Minister of Police, Allah. Viva Andrew Whitfield, viva! Hey, the new boss of this place.
Phuma Bheki Cele, phuma! Phambili Mzansi, phambili! The ANC and the EFF are trying so hard to divide. They are doing everything they can to divide us. But there is more in this country that unites South Africans than divides us. And when it comes to crime, there are two specific things that unite South Africans across all walks of life. One, we want to be safe. And two, we want Bheki Cele to go. I have never met a South African who says they want to be unsafe. And I've never met a South African who says Bheki Cele is doing a good job. The only person who says Bheki Cele's job is President Ramaphosa. And so our next step after this office in the coming months is going to be the union buildings, so he can hear us loud and clear. But what the President fails to understand is that we cannot be truly free until we are safe. And we cannot be safe until Minister Cele is gone. Public confidence in policing has plummeted because the South African Police Service has lost the capability to even answer the telephone. You try and phone a police station and see if they answer the phone. You'd be better off phoning 911. At least someone in America will answer the phone. When you phone 10111 in South Africa, ayiko. Just imagine, a violent criminal breaks into your house. They're carrying a gun. You phone the police station. And if you're lucky enough to get through, they say, sorry, we can't come, we don't have any cars. Not enough vehicles, we'll get to you when we can. You can't afford private security, the police are your last line of defense. And the bottom line is that Bheki Cele simply does not care. The DA phoned 270 police stations this week. We phoned 270 police stations. 44% of those police stations answered the phone. 56% of those police stations didn't answer the phone, or the telephone lines are not working. 9 of the stations we called appear on the top 10 list for murders. 66% of those did not answer the phone. This is the gut-wrenching reality for millions of South Africans who are left to defend themselves. Every single one of us here is left to defend ourselves against violent criminals, while Bheki Cele travels in convoys with armed security paid for by who? By you. Since Bheki Cele was appointed as Minister of Police in 2018, we have less boots on the ground. We have less reservists. We have less vehicles on the roads. We have less faith in the South African Police Service, not more. And while we've lost faith in Minister Cele, 78% of police officers say that they do not believe that the police care about them. So it's not just you in blue, it's our men and women in police blue that are also having no confidence in Minister Cele. We all deserve a capable minister, and especially our police officers who go to work and put their lives on the line every day to try to keep us safe. The good news is that SAPS can be fixed. It's not all doom and gloom. The DA has solutions and we can get the job done, but you need to put us into government so that we can put those solutions into action and get our country to a safe position. We need to root out corrupt cadres and make sure that honest South Africans can get the job to keep us safe. We need to make sure that we recruit specialist skills to improve convictions and to ensure that we can put violent criminals behind bars. We need to restore discipline to the police officers in this country. We can't have drunk police officers falling down, passing outside their cars, drunk all day, while South Africans are being raped and murdered. We need to modernize the police service, and we must embrace a whole-of-society approach to policing. We need our neighborhood watchers, CPFs, and civil society working together with us to bring back honest professional policing and to keep our communities safe. Finally, the DA needs to ensure, through the fight to devolve policing powers, that the policing powers in this country are taken from Pretoria and to the people. We need to make sure that capable provincial and local governments can deliver policing services to keep us safe. The fact is that this is not something in our imagination. President Ramaphosa last week in Parliament told John Steenhuisen it's a good idea, we must investigate it. The next day in Parliament, Bheki Cele stood up. I said, please, will you investigate it? He said, no, we're not going to investigate it. The Union Buildings doesn't know what Telkom Towers is talking about, and Telkom Towers doesn't know what the Union Building is talking about. We have a divided government that is trying to divide our country, and only the DA can save it. We are going to take this fight, colleagues. This is phase one. We're going to take this fight to the Union Buildings. We're not going to stop until we bring back honest professional policing in our country. Let us stand together united in our unity as we fight for a safer South Africa for all South Africans. I thank you.
Viva TA, viva! Viva!
And we're thanking the organizations that are here with us today, because you see, crime is not a political issue. Crime is not about the t-shirt that you are wearing. Everybody in South Africa knows what it's like to be unsafe. And so we've got organizations here who are here joining us today, who are saying the same thing that we are saying, that Bheki Cele needs to go. It's either we go or he goes, but we can't coexist. And the president has a choice to make. And now we've got the provincial leader of Gauteng, Msimanga, who's here to tell us what we are doing in this province.
Halala DA, halala. Halala DA, halala. Democrats, this morning, Irke Tomeka Hore, Bunta Telebum Meva Peri uniform Kamumrauha Kakambo, Realerata. We love you. We are here because we want you to do your job. We know that you cannot do your job because of the fat cats are somewhere sitting in air-conditioned offices while you are out there risking your life on a daily basis to make South Africa a better place. I want to say to the man in blue, you don't have to be scared when the DA is here. Put down those shields. Those are very much unnecessary. The people of the DA are very peaceful people. They are forward-looking people. Arita mai re tuwa di shopo. Arita mai re lonta le batho. Re lontana le ditsotsi. Ka tsone re tsela mo go tlo botsa tsotsi number 2. Gore wena nako ya hao ya tsetela. Nako ya hao ya fela. We cannot come here. Re ke le botsa something. Mo Gauteng. Re re pass budget, but no. Mapolisa can only be bought 50 cars. 50 cars for the whole province of Gauteng. Go and ask Bheki Cele how much they spent last year on VIP protection. How much they spend now buying BMWs and Mercedes-Benzes with blue lights. How much they spend on hotels to accommodate fat cats. How much they spend on the Makotasa family. How much they spend on the ANC conferences using taxpayers' money. Yet a woman gets raped. When a woman goes and reports, but we don't have the rape kits. Yet, when somebody's car is hijacked, we don't have enough vehicles. Government garage. Yet, when you go to a police station, a police station operates like spaza shop. Because of Havana Mamod, man. We are saying, we are tired, and we've been saying this all along. Stop pampering and feeding and only taking care of the fat cats. Take care of the VIP, which are the very same people you said, vote for me and I will save you. Last the catering budget is going into millions. Catering budget Yamaporisha. Buntatebala Vajibali. Buntatebala Vajibali. Lum Mevali Avajibola. Babamba Nabashota Lili Bullet Murtunian Zavona. Babamba wana Lili Tunya Disalitegi. Babamba wana the first Hadisalitegi. Hasiti Ato Ilo Vereka is going to put his life in danger without a protective vest on. But how Kashavella? The ministers Lintate Palapala, Matras Bank. Utsamayaka a convoy etelleteli. They can even send the police outside of South Africa under the COVID yahuri yamba ututani million tsaka kinaka chelete yaka tsamaya maporisha but when no go rape was says you tloya ku police station. When I have something that's wrong with the police station. Not what the police don't want to do their job, but because they are not equipped to do their job. We have been saying with the population in South Africa, the population is growing so much that the number of police to the population size useless. They are stretched. If you lose now standard, Maporisha internationally there should be a certain number to a number Yaruna is 3 times more than that. And then Ramakar. Mar every year Bheki Cele ba hira Maporisha atu katambona. How ya kuntunya Bheki Cele hona le Maporisha. How tsana mu office nya Bheki Cele hona le Maporisha. When you go anywhere where there's a minister, there will be police. But when who's protecting you? Let me close by saying, I've never seen an organization that hates poor people like this one that is in government. I've never. You see, rich people can afford private security. When I'm unsafe, I can call a private ADT company or BRAP company to come and look after me. What happens when I'm poor? What happens when I'm poor? I'll be raped. And nothing happens. I'll just have to go and stand go police station and hope that somebody does something. What happens when corruption is now becoming so rampant? The police that are supposed to be affecting arrests, but which is what political party are you affiliated with? If you're a councillor, if you are somebody you are affiliated to the organization, and this is why we are saying the turnaround starts with Minister O. This minister, Harusutelle. We are saying stop fighting our brothers and sisters. Yes, we want them to be here legally. But let's make sure our police are empowered to go and look for these people here and deal with these elements and things. Let's not make our brothers and sisters the victim. Instead of making sure they deliver to us.
And we are saying Ntate o ka re wena o tlo latella Ntate Makhura. Ntate Makhura matsatsi a ya mammaletse wa laela mo Gauteng. Ntate Makhura wa laela ka re yena has been contributing to what we have been talking about. But we are saying go le re sutelle ka gore o palletse go bana le a plan ya go tsena South Africa around, or South Africa can be a safe, prosperous country. We want a minister that will make sure he puts the people of South Africa first and not the comrades. Amanda!
Aye, sorry, Msimanga, aye.
You must go. Democrats, now we are nearing the end of our program. But before we do, we've got two organizations that are here who are united in our call for Bheki. We have Ian Cameron, who's the Director of Action Society. The man that Bheki Cele told to shut up. There are his people right there at the back. We are saying we're not going to shut up. Shut up about crime in this country. Osa Ian, Osa.
Oi, Ian, oi. Viva, Ian, viva!
I want to start today to tell you what I think when I think of Minister Bheki Cele. I want to mention 4 names to you today. And the reason I want to mention those names is to make sure that our people don't just become statistics. Because every time that minister opens his mouth and he speaks numbers, he doesn't mention that it's a mother, a grandfather, an aunt, an uncle, a sister, a brother that was yet again killed. When that man, then I think of Akila Schroeder, 15 years old, another child shot on the Cape Flats. When I think of that man, I think of the 5-year-old Nt'sekhe Pupedi that was dismembered in Tembisa and his mutilated body found a few weeks later. When I think of that man, I think of the true matriculants in KZN, Nkobeli Zulu and Menenhle Buthelezi. Both of them were axed, chopped up, dismembered, and again, just spoken about like numbers. When I think of Minister Bheki Cele, I think about the 3 people that will be murdered in this hour, the 3 people that are going to be murdered in the next hour, and I think about the 71 people that were killed yesterday, the 71 people that will be killed today, and the 71 people that will be killed tomorrow, again, under his watch. We are likely facing the worst murder year that we've seen in over a decade in South Africa. Chances are good that more than 24,000 people will be slaughtered because of an incompetent leader leading the South African Police Service, showboating behind his army of bodyguards, whilst all of us don't even have half the protection that he has. I want to mention that I think of the DNA backlog of over 140,000 cases that they have failed to process. I think of the 120 rapes, a minimum per day in South Africa. No rape kits and conviction rates lower than 8%. I want to think of the South African police members that don't have the resources that they need to support the people on the ground. And I want to think of the horrific rotten apples in the South African Police Service who shouldn't be there,
who are trying to lead it but have looted the South African Police Service for what it once was. Minister Bheki Cele, you have failed us. You scavenge on tax money and you hide behind your army of bodyguards while the rest of the country live with all this pain and bloodshed around them. Most of our police stations don't even have pens, paper or vehicles to drive with, but you've got bodyguards. The other day in the Cape Flats, I saw you there with TRT, National Intervention, Provincial Task Team, K9 Unit, Flying Squad, the local police station. But the people call for a vehicle, it shows up more than 24 hours later. That's on your watch. You have blood on your hands, sir. You need to step down. And we will never, ever shut up. I would like to introduce Petrus Sito, that speaks on behalf of the violence in rural areas from the Eastern Cape. Thank you, Petrus.
South Africans, my name is Petrus Sito. I'm an activist in South Africa fighting for our farmers and farm workers. Let me tell you, I have to engage with the minister of Bheki Cele. That minister, we need protection of our farmers and farm workers. I'm talking about black, white, Indian, colored. Let me tell you what happened. We have a meeting with the minister last year, 2021, on the 30th August, here in Pretoria, the police academy. And he promised me that we are going to have a national rural safety summit. And every time they postpone. From East London, I went here, Union Building, to sleep outside, to push the president of South Africa that the people of South Africa are dying because of hunger. South Africans, let me tell you something. We are going to be like Zimbabwe. Here in our country, we need each other. Here in our country, we need farmers. And our farmers here in South Africa, let me tell you, because some of the political leaders, they mislead you. They say that they're only one race. No. I am the first one to interview the victims. We have been attacked, raped, some of the sin. We have been killed. I'm there. Let me tell you, South Africa, Bheki Cele on the 27th and 28th June 2022 in Paris, we've got a national rural safety summit. I was one of the speakers on that day, and I was one of the tax team that Bheki Cele he has appointed, and he promised us as a tax team that he will introduce our names to the president of South Africa. But let me tell you something. The Pala something. I went in Pala last year to pray outside that God, please expose this Pala farm, because South Africans, I walk. It's a maile kamautu. Mense I got gestap van Oos-London tot Pala farm to go and pray outside. It was last year, and today God has exposed the president of South Africa. And we say, glory to God, because he used the poor black men to protect our food security. They have tried to kill us with the COVID. You remember that? Now, they target the farmers because they know that if we have no food, we are going to kill each other. And let me tell you today, I promise you that I am the first one to open a case against the president of South Africa in Bloemfontein High Court. South Africans,
Petros, viva!
South Africans, the case number is 3369/2022. Now, on the 25th October, August 2022, we went to High Court Bloemfontein. After everything, they said to me, we are going to give you a judgment via SMS, via WhatsApp, because everything has been captured. South Africans, I will fight for everyone.
Halala TA, halala!
Viva TA, viva! Viva TA, viva! Democrats, are you ready for change? Democrats, are you ready for 2024? Ladies and gentlemen, to Kenta, from Mpumalanga to Tshwane. He is the leader of the Democratic Alliance. He is the federal leader. He leads in the parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen! Pansy! Forward to 2024, Democrats! Forward! Democrats, friends, colleagues, I want to start off by thanking the brave men and women in blue. Yes. And it's not you, because you brave men and women in blue, but it's our brave police officers who every day put their life on the line to keep us safe. They deserve better than Bheki Cele as a minister. South Africa deserves better than Bheki Cele as Minister of Police. Wow. They've taken the Telkom towers and he's turned it into faulty towers, because everything that happens in there from the minister is faulty. Now, Democrats, we've heard today about the 364 violent robberies, about the 67 of our fellow citizens who are murdered every single day. We've heard about our women and children who are raped every single day. But these are more than just numbers. These are people. These are your family, they're our family, and that shouldn't have happened. And it wouldn't have happened if we had a police minister who knew how to fight crime, instead of the clown that we have who has no idea how to fight crime. Does he have an idea how to fight crime? Why do we want him to go? Because he's a failure. He failed as the National Commissioner. He's failing as the Minister. And we will not change the situation with crime in South Africa today with Bheki Cele as the Minister of Police. Now, I want to tell you something, that Minister Bheki Cele has given up the fight against crime. He's given up. He's given up because on that billboard you can see he said, in South Africa things have got so bad, that crime is so bad that you're lucky if you only get raped once. What do we say to that? We say, no,
We say no. We say no. No one is lucky to be raped in South Africa. Nobody deserves to be raped in South Africa. But he's given up. And I tell you, even Cyril Ramaphosa, Mr. Palapala, has given up on Bheki Cele. Because he may tell us that he supports him, but you know what? He's got another house. He doesn't only have Palapala, and we know what happens there with the money under the mattress. Do you keep honest people keep it in a bank? Where did he build his house? In the DA-run Western Cape. Because he knows that it's the best run and safest province in the country, thanks to Alan Winde and Geordin Hill-Lewis and our governments there. So let's give them a big round of applause.
Yeah.
We also know President has no faith in Bheki Cele, although he tells Parliament that he does, because when the money got stolen from under the mattress, he didn't even tell Bheki Cele. Why would you not go and report a crime to the police? It's because even Mr. Ramaphosa knows that the ANC cannot fight crime in South Africa. And that is the reality. The reality is that nothing is going to change in South Africa in the fight against crime as long as the man in the hat is in office there. And that's why we're saying, Bheki Cele. Panzi Bheki Cele. But we also know that we can't, as Democrats and people who love South Africa and love our fellow countrymen and women and care about our people, we can't sit back and say, oh well, it's Bheki Cele, he must do the work. And that's why in Cape Town, Mayor Geordin Hill-Lewis and Alan Winde, the Premier of the Western Cape, are putting officers on the street and fighting crime, and it's working. It's working. It's working because they've got a plan, they've got the resources, they know how to do it. And if that doesn't show you why localized policing and why we must take power away from Bheki Cele and give it back to the people on the ground to fight crime. People who know the dynamics. People who can work with civil society organizations like Ian Cameron's and Petrus's, where we can have partnership policing. That is the way to beat crime in South Africa, and the DA has shown the way. We know the way. We know how to fight crime. We know how to put people in jail. JP Smith is very good at that. So let us do it at a national level then as well. Why do you want to hang on to the power unless you want to abuse that power for political purposes? That's the real story. You want to hold on to that power so that you can abuse that power. Democrats, you joined today in front of these officers 33,000 South Africans who have signed the petition that Cele must go. You join civil society organizations that have come together and said Cele must go. You join newspaper editorials that all with one voice said Cele must go. And so now it's time for President and do the one thing that's going to change crime in South Africa, and that is to fire Bheki Cele. And so we're going to send a message, because I'd like you to know that the President is in town. He's up with the cabinet at the Union Buildings today. I think I told another march in Cape Town, I've seen better cabinets at Bradlow's. They've got much better cabinets there. So I'm going to ask you to shout loudly what we want so that they hear it all the way there in the Union Buildings. So there can be no confusion about what we want as South Africans. What do we want? Cele must go! 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 Democrats, friends, we can fight crime in South Africa. We can keep our women and children safe. We can keep our community safe from crime, and we can do that and so much more, but we cannot do it with Bheki Cele. And so when that day comes, when it's time for Cele to go, I'll be standing there ready to vula that gate to make sure that he's gone and that we save South Africa. Viva DA, viva! Viva! Pambili DA, pambili! Pambili! Forward! Forward, Democrats, forward! Forward to 2024 and a DA government, forward! Forward to genuine liberation of the people of South Africa, forward! Democrats, are we ready for 24? Yeah. Are you ready for a DA government? Yeah. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Are you ready? Are you ready? Well, Democrats, let's get out there and do it. 2024, yeah, we come. 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 2024. Yeah, we come! Viva Transnet!
Some very passionate speakers up on that stage today, but the central message very, very clear, and it's what the march is about. Bheki Cele must go. I mean, what was touched on there is what we spoke about earlier in the studio. These are not numbers, these are people.
No, absolutely. And over and beyond the people, I think it's the presentation of concrete evidence of what is lacking in the leadership of the South African Police Service, and that is exemplified by Bheki Cele. And this is really a justifiable demand that the DA is making on behalf of all South Africans who have been let down by Bheki Cele's leadership as police minister as to why he must go. But I think one of the key takeaways from me from that discussion is that the need for far more collaboration between, residents, civil society, and local forms of government, because these are people that are at the coalface of confronting the effects of crime and public safety that confronts many of our communities. And it's very key to have civil society organizations like Action Society in there to showcase that this transcend political leanings. This is a demand that we are making on behalf of everyone in our country who's affected by crime.
Yeah. Absolutely. 33,000 people signing the petition. The message is clear. Minister Bheki Cele is failing. He is a failure. He has a track record of failing, and he needs to vacate office with immediate effect. The speeches were really good, really precise, telling us what the issues are and telling us what some of the solutions might be. Richard, I'd like to break down and maybe go into the DNA backlog just a little bit, because a lot of the speakers spoke about the DNA backlog. So what does the DNA backlog actually mean? Well, it means that justice is denied to victims and to survivors. Picture this. Something happens to you. The police come, they take DNA evidence, and then it takes 2 years.
It's a long time.
2 years, Solly, to come back with the processing of the DNA. So this means that you have to wait a minimum of 2 years before you can go to court, before justice can be served. And what happens in these 2 years? As Refiloe Nt'sekhe said, perpetrators continue living their lives as normal, as if nothing had happened, and yet you have survivors and victims waiting so many years just to get a crucial piece of evidence in order to get a conviction. The DNA backlog is a crisis in the forensic division of South Africa. First, it was procurement issues, management issues, lack of consumables. So Minister Minister Cele has presided over this failure of a DNA backlog. And it was the DA in 2019 that exposed the DNA backlog and actually started making a noise about it. If it wasn't for the DA, we would still see the backlog continuing to increase instead of decreasing. So this is something that's very important.
And because of that, we're talking about a time frame where dockets go missing, witnesses leave, and it's just a problem. I'm hearing from our producers that Celia Brink is on the ground with some of the speakers from today, and we're crossing over to Celia.
Thanks very much, Richard. Indeed, I'm joined by leaders of the Democratic Alliance across the country, and I'm going to speak to Premier Alan Winde, Premier of the Western Cape. Alan, welcome to Pretoria.
Thank you. It's really good to be here. It's good to see people coming out in Gauteng. You know, we've got to build a safer country, and I think positioning it right here outside of Bheki Cele's office is exactly the right thing to do. He's got no plan whatsoever. Crime just keeps on going up under his watch. He's got to go, and quite frankly, the ANC's got to go as well. And we've shown that where we put a plan in place, where we put some partnership together with the city and the province, we can actually focus through management, data, and bring down murder rates. Well, imagine if we had full power in provinces to actually put management plans in place. We would change the safety environment for our citizens.
So 20,000 fewer officers in the South African police than in 2010. What is the Western Cape doing about this? Tell us more about those initiatives.
It's amazing. 20,000 fewer officers and 20,000 people get murdered in our country every single year. I mean, that number just sends shivers through my spine. In the Western Cape, that's 3,800, but we're the only province where we're actually seeing a decline because of what we are busy doing. So, it's critical that we actually put proper plans in place, but quite a devolution of power, because it's got to come with that 200 that Bheki Cele has, and it's not making a difference. That's got to be apportioned to the provinces and the municipalities, and that's how we will bring about change.
Thanks very much, Alan. Then we have Geordin as well. Alan mentioned the city of Cape Town as one of the partners in the struggle for devolution, taking those initiatives. Meneer Kaapstad, welkom in Pretoria.
Baie dankie, baie lekker om hier te wees saam almal julle.
So sê net vir ons, Geordin, have these initiatives taken by the city, have they actually worked? Have they borne fruit? What do we have to show for that investment in devolved policing powers?
Celia, if you look at the crime stats that were released 2 weeks ago Friday, we saw something extraordinary. Of the top 30 worst crime precincts in the country, in 10 of those, crime went down. In another 20, crime went up, which demonstrates the problem. Of the 10 where crime went down, 9 are in Cape Town. 1 is in KZN. And every one of those 9 is a leap deployment area where we are putting our own officers that Alan just spoke to you about on the ground, doing basic visible policing, patrolling the streets on foot, in vehicles, keeping people safe. And it's really working. So this idea that devolved, decentralized local policing doesn't work, that Bheki Cele is trying to sell, is nonsense. It is working. We're showing it's working. In 90% of the places where crime is going down, it's because of the intervention we are making.
And as Geordin was speaking, one of the first things he said was, our case is not against the police, the officers, our case is against their political head, Bheki Cele. And I was seeing some of the officers stationed here nodding in agreement. But we also have Siviwe Gwagube, the new DA Chief Whip in Parliament. Siviwe, we have this campaign, celemustgo.co.za. 30,000 people have already signed our petition. What is the next step in this campaign to get Bheki Cele removed as the Minister of Police?
I think, Celeste, the sheer volume of the people that have signed onto this petition also just shows you that South Africans have lost faith in the ability of Minister Cele and his team to be able to bring crime down. And so we're not letting this matter go. And as Geordin and as Alan said, we're not simply folding our hands and saying this is not our problem. We've got what we are, where we govern, we are putting in interventions, but also in Parliament we have moved legislation and pushed harder so that we can give more powers to SAFs to be able to invest investigate and convict criminals. We are really going to be pushing hard around the devolution of powers because
Well, we seem to have lost our link to Tshwane, but I'm sure we'll get that back soon. Yes, very important. As we were saying, all comes down to two major things. Bheki Cele must go, and there must be a devolution of powers.
Absolutely.
And it's a very important thing to outline from the onset what difference that transfer of power into local authorities does. And as Geordin highlighted, 9 of the 10 police precincts that experienced a downward percentage in crimes are where the city and province have deployed these law enforcement advancement program officers, because it shows that when you use localized knowledge with those skills to do targeted interventions, that is the difference you have. Now, can you imagine if the province of the Western Cape was able to extend that beyond all the municipality, throughout the municipalities in the province, what impact that would have? And perhaps it raises the questions why this resistance from Bheki Cele about this transfer of political power. It will showcase that other people with the same resources or a fraction of those resources are able to achieve more. And perhaps that is his biggest fear, because this monopoly over police resources that he has will then be dismantled and he will have nothing to showcase as his political muscle.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what John Steenhuisen said in his speech. The reason why Bheki Cele doesn't want to let go of powers is because he's abusing the powers. Now, for me, the proof is in the pudding. If you can show me that there is a decrease in these places and an increase in other places, that is enough scientifically based evidence to show you that when you bring policing closer to the ground and you collaborate with stakeholders and the communities, things do change. So I want South Africa to remember that we're not going in a black hole and sinking. We can change it and we can make a difference, and the LEAP program is just one example of making a difference already.
And I think it was shown by Geordin, who did say that they've offered these solutions to the minister, saying this is how it's working, work with us, and the answer was no.
Look, again, you have to look at the politics at play, and that is what I think gets in the way of national government's reluctance to release. But at the end of the day, more safer communities is a win for South Africa.
Exactly.
More safer communities means that children can play freely. It means that women can walk the streets freely without the threat of rape in the back of their mind. It also means that when you have safer communities, that it is attractive for investment to take place in those instances. So you can then start fighting the social ills that then take place in that instance. This is why it's so important to look beyond what are these issues that contribute to crime happening, because it extends beyond crime. It leads into more social ills, into more unemployment. And it's so important for every South African to continue to lend their support to this petition so that together our voices can reach the president and we can get to a situation where Bheki Cele vacates that office. And we need to apply that pressure beyond today's march and beyond each and every intervention. Rally your neighbor, rally your colleague, rally your street committee to sign this petition so that we can get Bheki Cele to go.
I can't see any reason for the president not to have got this message now. It's very clear from all South Africans. Bheki Cele must go, and it's now, the ball is now in his court. Bheki Cele is not going to leave on his own. So the president really needs to take a bold and decisive step.
No, absolutely. Minister Cele is as arrogant as they come. He will not take accountability and step down. So therefore, the ball is in President Ramaphosa's court, and he needs to, exactly what Siviwe said, we can't coexist. It's either Minister Cele or the people of South Africa.
And realistically, I have to ask you, do you think Bheki Cele will even pay any attention to this march?
Well, I don't think that he can ignore it. There is a growing wave against his continued existence into that office. And eventually the president will have to make that call. And we are making it easy for the president. We are saying that choose South Africa over Bheki Cele.
Absolutely. I think one thing I'll give Minister Cele is that when it comes to pettiness, he's full of petty. So he will definitely be following this march, and he will come back and he'll probably give a rebuttal of some sort that he'll suck out of his thumb that won't make any sense. So don't even bother listening to it. It won't make any sense. But one thing's for sure, he knows about this. He heard it, but it won't change the arrogance that he has. And what he needs to do is be fired.
Indeed, we're getting some questions through, or some comments from the public. Here I see one from Randall van Staden saying, I've signed the petition, it's time for Bheki Cele to go, which is great to see. There is something here from Izula who says, there's always this debate about who controls SAPS when you're talking about the Western Cape. I think the message is clear. At the moment, the Western Cape doesn't control SAPS.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very simple distinction. The Western Cape or the city, nor the city of Cape Town have no control whatsoever over the South African Police Service. That gets determined by the National Minister of Police in Pretoria. And, the city and the province just have to accept what is being allocated in their areas and deal with that. And that is where the shortcoming is. And that is why the debate about more transfer of policing powers to localized municipalities and provincial governments that have shown, Richard, that they are capable of delivering, which is a major distinction.
Absolutely.
Vusia sent us a question. Perhaps you can help us here with this one. He says that, I'm impressed by the safety initiatives in Cape Town, but isn't this against the law? They can't have their own police force.
No. So it's not like the Western Cape is trying to recreate SAPS. That's not it at all. It's basically a assistance. So picture it as a net, and when you have a hole in the net, things tend to fall through. So picture this as a patchwork to prevent anything from falling through the cracks. And this is basically what LEAP is doing. They trained in terms of how to handle conflict, peace officer training. They trained in many different aspects, but it's not to say we're going to take over SAPS and replace SAPS with elite officers. Not at all. It's just about implementing mechanisms to assist SAPS and to assist communities to feel safer where they are. And also, Richard, just to add, when we speak about LEAP and the safety plan, we're also speaking about CCTV cameras, body cameras, dash cameras, technology that will take us into the modern world of security, where finding evidence tracking and finding suspects become a little bit easier if we use drone footages, cameras along. I mean, why are we sitting in the old, 16th century? We're 2022. Yeah. Moving on to 2023. We in the age of computer technology, and things are moving quicker, and we need to catch up. And if South Africa doesn't catch up, we'll all be left behind, and we'll all be staying in an unsafe society. So, Minister Cele, wake up.
I think that's a very good point. And coming back to an issue we spoke about earlier about the resources not being in place, I did a little bit of research, and some of these vehicles that are not roadworthy is because there's a crack in the windscreen, and that vehicle has been standing for repairs, the police vehicle, for 6 months, waiting for someone to replace it. That is ridiculous. That is just poor management.
It is almost unthinkable, but that's the reality. I mean, on average, almost half of the allocated police vehicles are in the government garage undergoing repairs. And it just shows you another administrative failure. It means that, the unit with the service that is responsible for the maintenance of these vehicles isn't doing their job, because, again, there is no accountability that trickles down into the system. Can you imagine, can any police force or any police service operate fully if half of his vehicles are not operational? The victims of that is that people who suffer from crime do not get the assistance that they need. And that is the loophole, because what local governments like the city of Cape Town and provincial government of the Western Cape are doing, they are plugging in the holes that exist as a result of the shortcomings of the South African police services. They are allowed by law to use everything within their legislative requirement to contribute towards making communities safer where we govern. And that's why they've taken this initiative with the LEAP program, because, they can't just sit idly. They've got a responsibility to protect communities wherein we govern. And we've got limitations because of the law. And that's why it is so necessary to change these laws and to have the political will to transfer more powers, more policing powers towards the city of Cape Town and the province.
And I think both of you have been on oversight visits to police stations. And I know a lot of people in the communities think, well, it seems like my police station is not very functional. They don't have Wi-Fi, or they don't have enough officers, or they're not open for the hours they should be. But from your experience, are you finding this is a lot more widespread, that these officers and the police stations are not able to function correctly?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as Crezane Bosch said, 5 out of the 143 police stations in Gauteng is up to 5. I can't even get that wrapped around my head. So what about all the other police stations? Speaking about sewage coming down, no electricity. I mean, I spoke about the victim empowerment rooms earlier. When you walk in, it looks like you're in a cell. It doesn't even feel comfortable where you're able to speak to a counselor or a social worker to get the assistance that you need. Broken windows, going in, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. And if we can't maintain the infrastructure, then we are already failing. So again, Patricia de Lille also fired.
Yeah. And in addition to the infrastructure, it's the human resource element of it, because the existing infrastructure of SAPS, it's collapsing, it's dilapidated from the vehicles, just even the buildings. But more so is the shortage of human resources. You've got 20,000 less police officers than we did 11 years ago. We currently have 1,300 fewer detectives than we do. I mean, in the police oversights that I've done, in Limpopo, we've done, almost 8 in the course of the last 3 weeks. We are picking up, common trends. Detectives are overburdened. Some dealing with over 100 dockets at once. That affects the quality of work that goes into the criminal justice system that determines whether or not you can have a successful conviction. And because of that shoddy work, it affects the outcomes with regards to the number of convictions that we end up having in society. And again, if we've got trained officers, properly trained officers, fully resourced officers, it gives them a far stronger chance to win the fight against crime. And we can't just sit and surrender, to criminals. And it's so commendable what the Western Cape is doing. It's so commendable what the city of Cape Town is doing. We need far more political will from national government to relinquish those powers towards this local government. Because at the end of the day, if it means that the city of Cape Town saves one more life, if it means that the Western Cape provincial government makes one more community safer, South Africa wins.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need. We need a safer country. We need a safer city. We need a safer province. And if these initiatives are able to deliver that, let's do more of those, because the current dispensation, with the insistence by the Minister of Police to hold on to that power so religiously, leads to less safety on the road.
If I have to put a last question to you, Nazli, if you could choose the first thing that must change now to set this all in motion, what is it?
For President Ramaphosa to wake up tomorrow morning and do a press release, my fellow South Africans, I have fired Minister Bheki Cele and Minister Maite Mashabane.
Solly, from your side?
Absolutely. We need a new Minister of Police. That will also galvanize the South African police service. There are so many hardworking police officers who are so discouraged by the drivel that this minister drives every time he opens his mouth. You need a figure that can galvanize the South African police services to focus on crime fighting.
You've heard from my colleagues in studio. You've heard from the speakers out in Tshwane at the culmination of this march. And you've heard from fellow South Africans who have said enough is enough. We need to sign that petition. The hashtag Cele must go. That's not going anywhere until Bheki Cele goes. And it's for all of us in South Africa to stand together and say, we want to be safe. We want to be safe in our homes, our communities, our farms, and where we work. We cannot have South Africa as an ongoing crime scene. Sign the petition, stand together. Bheki Cele must go. Until next time, goodbye.
South Africa ranked as one of the most dangerous countries in the world.
Latest crime stats suggest South Africa is a crime scene.
South Africa is facing a safety crisis at the moment.
There is a growing awareness and understanding across the country that policing is not being done well, that there are major challenges with resources, with capability, with technology. On every front, your National Police Service is struggling.
Whenever we visit communities, we hear the sentiment that many are living in fear. Many are afraid to even go to the shop.
There is clearly a significant spike in the amount of violent crime that communities and people and families are experiencing in South Africa.
The National Commissioner is on record that SAPS does not have the resources to fulfill their mandate.
The South African Police Service under national government is broken. It no longer serves the communities that it is meant to serve.
I think we've increasingly accepted that the cavalry is not coming, help is not going to arrive.
But we are not going to simply throw up our hands and say, well, this is SAPS's job.
We could no longer sit back and say this is a national government's problem. The City of Cape Town and the Western Cape government has had to step up to be able to keep communities in this province safe.
Our big interventions are on two streams. Firstly, more boots on the ground in the worst affected communities.
Our partnership with the City of Cape Town deployed an additional amount of law enforcement officers, what we commonly refer to as LEAP officers.
LEAP is a joint project between the city and the province to put 1,100 extra boots on the ground.
And this year alone, the city's putting an extra 230 officers on top of that in the field.
The primary focus of LEAP has been crime prevention. They have targeted contact crime and violent crime, taking firearms off the street. Between Metro Police and LEAP, they have removed in the last 2 years 222 firearms from the streets of Cape Town.
Our second big track of investment, and I think this is really exciting for the future, is in crime-fighting technology, to get us right to the cutting edge of global crime-fighting tech. Whether that be drone surveillance of our city 24 hours a day so that we can have eyes on incidents and track suspects, body cameras or dashboard cameras for all of our officers and vehicles, tens of millions more in CCTV cameras around the city, and bringing it all together in a brand new high-tech control room in the city that will manage all of our officers and resources, get the best intel to officers where they are. These tech investments over the next few years will really meaningfully make people feel safer in Cape Town. Neighborhood watches are an absolutely invaluable part of the community. They do a wonderful job just creating an atmosphere of safety.
In the city, we have at this stage around 25,000 Neighborhood Watch members.
We provide funding, training and assistance to CPFs because they are the middlemen and women between communities and the police service.
So we recruit them into our law enforcement auxiliary service. It's the only police reserve service run by a local authority in South Africa. In the last quarter alone, these reservists have clocked up 4,000 hours of patrolling.
The relationships we've built with the neighborhood watches have been vital in building the trust between our communities and policing.
If we can bring crime down and make people feel a sense that this is not a place where they have to walk in fear or live in constant state of anxiety inside their own homes or communities, then we will have achieved something positive and move closer towards that purpose of giving people a sense of hopefulness for the future.
We have seen Nyanga move from being the murder capital of the country to a steady decline of the crime statistics, something that this community so desperately needed.
We've also seen an area like Crezane, which saw a 40.5% reduction in the murder rate.
Police stations across the city showing quarter on quarter over the last year improvements in their crime stats.
South Africa desperately needs a police service that is professional, that is well trained, that cares and is in touch with the people that it serves,
so that the trust can ultimately be restored between those that should be serving and protecting our residents and those that need it the very most.
Policing should be run close as possible to the communities that have to benefit from that policing.
And in the Western Cape, we're saying we are ready for that. We have proven that we are very able to run the police, more so than national government.
We're going to go into that space, do more ourselves, continue to invest, continue to work with residents and neighborhood watchers until we get the outcome that we need, which is crime coming down in Cape Town and people feeling safer.